Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Mango. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'll be your host for the balance of the afternoon. I thought we'd begin by reinforcing with a quotation the President's sentiments just a couple of minutes ago. You may recognize this. We were successful at Normandy because we didn't know it was impossible. From the President to Secretary Azar, to Dr. Slaoui and General Perna, and down through the ranks of every participant in both the public and private sectors, their focus was singular: save American lives. No one on this team ever knew bringing millions of doses of even one, not to mention two vaccines, safe and effective to the American people before year-end was impossible. This was the principal reason today why we are where we are, on the verge of doing just that. But as the President noted, this is what separates America from the rest of the world. We take the impossible and we make it possible. Make no mistake about it, though, today is not a declaration of mission accomplished. Rather, it's a glimpse into mission impossible, an extraordinary effort to successfully confront what many of the world's experts and pundits believed could not be done. We have three objectives for this afternoon. The first is to build understanding. We will describe how the Trump administration plans to equitably distribute safe and effective vaccines to any American desiring one. Second, we seek to build confidence, describe how the Trump administration is following data and science in the development and evaluation of the vaccines. And third, we're going to recognize achievements, celebrate the private sector innovation, commitment, and the American spirit those working with the Trump administration have demonstrated every step of the way to achieve the fastest development and distribution of vaccines in history. The run of show today will be as follows. Dr. Slaoui will discuss the strategy and process behind the investments and cultivation of our vaccine portfolio, while General Perna will provide some insights into the task of shipping vaccines within 24 hours of FDA authorization. Adam Bowler and Dr. Peter Marks will discuss the rigorous gold standard process the FDA is using to ensure the vaccines are safe and effective. Admiral Gerard and the executives from FedEx, UPS, McKesson, and Thermo Fisher will discuss cold storage, handling, and delivery logistics. We'll then have a 10-minute break, about an hour and a half in. Then Brad Smith will be moderating a panel with CVS and Walgreens to discuss vaccine administration, with a focus on long-term care and senior living facilities. Then Secretary Azar, who's been the architect of Operation Warp Speed from the start, will interview Governors Abbott, DeSantis, Edwards, and Lee about the critical role of states and jurisdictions in the vaccine prioritization and administration process. Finally, we'll hear from Vice President Pence, whom you know has been leading the White House task force for the last 9 months. He'll offer some reflections and closing remarks. Implicit in this agenda are three vital partnerships animating the success of Operation Warp Speed. First is HHS and the Department of Defense. Second is federal-state, and third is public-private. The federal government is enabling success, but we would not be here today if not for the set of collaborative partnerships. You will gain more insight into each of these over the next couple of hours. As Dr. Slaoui and General Perna come up onto the platform, I'd like to briefly describe the paradox that's inherent in their roles. Dr. Slaoui's role has been to evaluate and advance from over 100 candidates what became a portfolio of 6 vaccines having the greatest probability on a risk-adjusted basis of achieving our objectives. At the same time, General Perna's role has been to create a distribution and administration architecture ensuring any or all 6 of these vaccines translate into actual vaccinations. So while Dr. Slaoui's odds of success improved with every vaccine in the portfolio, the complexity of General Perna's task grew exponentially. Some vaccine requires 2 doses, some require 1. Some need an adjuvant, some need a diluent. Some injections are 21 days apart, some are 28 days apart. Some need small needles and syringes, others need large ones. Some need to be stored at minus 80 degrees Celsius, others at room temperature. I think you get the point. Nonetheless, General Perna and his team from the Army Logistics Command, along with the Centers for Disease Control and Dr. Redfield, are meticulously working through these issues. But it's best that Dr. Slaoui and General Perna describe all of this in their own words. Dr. Slaoui?
Thank you. I'm going to take care of Ladies and gentlemen, indeed significant progress has been made through Operation Warp Speed in the development of vaccines against COVID-19 for the American people and for the world. However, obviously there is still much more that needs to be accomplished before we can effectively take control of this pandemic and get back to our normal life.
Hey, Dr. Sly, I'm sorry. You just need this microphone. Sorry to interrupt you here. That one's not working. So we need to turn that on. Yeah. Sorry about that.
So I thought today that what I do is summarize where we are in the development of COVID-19 vaccine. How come we have been so fast? Why I believe it's very important that Americans and people around the globe trust the effectiveness and safety of this vaccine. And of course, I also want to acknowledge and thank the many participants from the private sector to the academics to the US government employees to the volunteers who participated in the clinical trials and the hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people across various industries that have enabled and made possible where we are today. So over the past 7 months, what we have done is to say, let's select a portfolio of vaccines rather than bet on only one or two. And let's drive all 6, in fact, at the initiation we thought we could have 8. Let's drive them in parallel as safely and as securely as possible. And we designed that portfolio by selecting what we call platform technologies. I'll explain that more in a second. And decided to take 2 exemplars of each platform technology in order to increase our chances to succeed, because failure is the normal life of research and development. And success is rare. And success in this case not only meant that we would have a vaccine, but that we would have a vaccine on time, and that we would have vaccine that can be manufactured in tens of millions and then very quickly into hundreds of millions of doses. These were all enormous challenges. And as we stand today, I think we are beginning to have some successes. 2 of the vaccines using one platform technology called messenger RNA have demonstrated, I believe, exceptional efficacy. 95 efficacy on average against disease. Importantly, they have both 100% efficacy against severe disease. They are equivalently efficacious in people over the age of 65, and importantly also in the diverse population that constitute our nation. I think they are very important achievements, and these 2 vaccines, one by Pfizer and one by Moderna, remarkably gave similar results, even though they were developed completely independently and designed completely independently. In fact, at the onset, competitively. These 2 vaccines will be reviewed by the FDA, as you know, on December 7th for the Pfizer vaccine and on December 17th for the Moderna vaccine. And we hope, I read today the comments from the FDA that are encouraging, that we hope these vaccines are likely to be approved and made available into several tens of millions of doses very quickly to the US population. 2 other vaccines from the portfolio using a different platform technology, which are a virus that's unable to replicate, that cannot infect you, but is able to deliver to you the vaccine, are in advanced phase 3 trials. One of them by Johnson & Johnson has already recruited more than 35,000 subjects in the phase 3 trial. And Mr. President explained that that vaccine is a one-shot vaccine, which in the context of a pandemic is really a major advantage, because people can achieve protection quickly after having received 1 dose, and we don't have to rely on them coming back for a second dose. I'm not saying 2 doses is bad. I'm just saying 1 dose is even better than 2 doses. That vaccine is likely to complete its efficacy trial in terms of assessing efficacy of the vaccine probably early in the month of January, and hopefully would file for emergency use authorization either late in January or early in February. That's important because we are likely to have a third vaccine somewhere in February, hopefully if the appropriate efficacy and safety profile, of course, are achieved. And there is a second vaccine using similar platform technology by AstraZeneca. That vaccine is also being tested in a phase 3 trial here in the US, where 17,000 plus subjects have already been recruited, and where we project that efficacy may be achieved somewhere in the end of January or early February, and maybe by late February or early March, that vaccine could become available if approved by the FDA to further increase the number of vaccine doses we have to immunize the nation and the world. And finally, we have 2 more vaccines using a third platform technology, which is a more classical platform technology, using recombinant proteins. And these are vaccines by a biotech company here in the US called Novavax, and another one by 2 large pharma and vaccine companies that put their efforts together, Sanofi and GlaxoSmithKline. These vaccines are in phase 2 trials and should be starting the phase 3 trials in the next few weeks or days. And if proven efficacious, they may, before the middle of the year, again, be able to apply for emergency use authorization and further add to our menu of vaccines with hopefully comparable efficacy and various advantages in terms of cold chain requirements and storage and other features. So in summary, I would say we have 2 in the hand, substantially, the 2 RNA vaccines, 2 close by, and 2 to come. We plan to manufacture enough of these vaccines to immunize about 20 million of our citizens before the end of this year, about 30 million in the month of January, and about 50 million in the month of February. Those would be immunizations that require 2 doses of vaccine. And we hope to either have more vaccine doses of the messenger RNA vaccines and or more vaccine doses from the other portfolio vaccine that I cited to complete the immunization of the rest of our population, which we project could be done by the month of June, if everybody accepts, which we hope, to be vaccinated. So how come we have developed so many vaccines so quickly? Well, really, this is what the operation has achieved. And there was a visionary, I think, decision to put together the academic sciences, the industry experience, biotech or pharmaceutical, the US government entities in terms of the Human Services Agency, and the Department of Defense, the logistics, the capabilities, the project management, the deep science, the industrial experience were all put together, financed, freed from bureaucracy, and empowered to make decisions. And I have to say, it has worked remarkably well. Yet, that was, I think, the necessary context in which speed was able to be achieved. But specifically, why were we so fast? 3 main reasons. The first reason is we were able to cut the front part of the discovery and development process of a vaccine from years to literally weeks, thanks to the use of what's called platform technologies. It's a little bit like if you had, imagine a cassette player can play classic music if you put a classic music tape, or a rock and roll if you put a rock and roll tape. 99% of the cassette player is, of course, the same. Only the tape changes, and you have a very different outcome. It's the same with vaccine. Platform technologies are a mean by which you can produce a vaccine that induces the right immune responses, and you put a different cassette in it to make a different vaccine against a different virus. So when we knew, we as the industry and the academia, what the virus that causes COVID-19 is and its sequence, companies were able to take that sequence, plug it in the cassette player of their platform technology, and be into the clinic within 2 months from the discovery of the virus. This is where we cut, I would say, most of the time. Those platform technologies have been invested into for decades for some of them, and at least for 10 years for instance, the messenger RNA. They have been into the clinic with other vaccines. They have been developed for industrial manufacturing. Their toxicology and safety in animals was described. We didn't cut corners. We used what was known and built on it. And I think that's really super important for everybody to understand. The second thing that allowed us to accelerate was that we took every possible operational and financial risk. We planned everything in parallel. We spent all the money before we knew whether things were going to work. We planned phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials in parallel. Of course, we didn't progress in parallel. We only progressed when the FDA said it's fine, it's safe to progress. But we selected hundreds of sites for clinical trial, for instance, well before we knew we could ever run the clinical trial. That's not what you do normally. That cost $1 billion, effectively, those clinical trials. We also invested enormous amounts of money to tune or build, equip, and then scale up the manufacturing process for these vaccines. Even hire people and train them into the manufacturing facilities. What we need to realize is no industry has idle manufacturing capabilities waiting for the next pandemic to happen. So that was a huge challenge, frankly, the bigger challenge, to be able to find those manufacturing capabilities, source the raw materials. My colleague, General Perna, and his team have done an unbelievable job in enabling the access to the raw materials, to the equipment, to the engineers, to whatever it is that was needed to be able to drive the speed of manufacturing. That's how we're able to have millions of doses of vaccine before the vaccines are approved. That's never how it works in real life. And then the third reason why we went very fast was that we ran very large trials for the efficacy, to assess efficacy of the vaccines. In the context of a pandemic, running a very big trial actually accelerates the speed with which you run the clinical trial because it allows you to accrue more cases in the trial. And having cases in the trials is what allows you to assess whether the vaccine is efficacious or not. Unfortunately, also, the speeding up of the pandemic and transmission of the virus has helped. And we were able to achieve, thanks to that, a much faster completion of the efficacy trial. As a second objective of having very large clinical trials is that we have a much larger database to document the short-term and mid-term safety of these vaccines. Normally, 6,000 to 8,000 subjects in a clinical trial is what's required for approval of a new vaccine. These are the key reasons why we have been able to accelerate the development of these vaccines. We did not cut corners, and these are the reasons why I really have a plea to all of us to keep our minds open, to keep our ears open, to remain receptive to facts, to science, to information that will be made available transparently. You will witness that as of Thursday through the FDA process, where every single bit of information and data that has been generated will be available and accessible to everybody to look into. Identify those experts that you know and that you trust and ask them what they think of the data. Listen to the data yourself and make up your mind. We have 95% efficacy, almost an insurance against this pandemic, and 100% efficacy against severe disease. A disease that killed more than 200,000, almost 300,000 people, killing more than 2,000 every day. Those are the risks we know, and they are happening every day. I hope most of us will accept to be vaccinated, because that's the way through which we will be able to control this pandemic. Otherwise, vaccines that are not used are useless. Vaccination is what's important. Finally, while great progress has been made, as I said in the beginning, we still have a lot to do. We still have vaccines that are being tested in phase 3. I told you that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has recruited 35,000 subjects. We need to get to 42,000. That's our objective. The AstraZeneca recruited 17,000. We need to get to 30,000. and the 2 protein vaccines are going to start their phase 3 trials in the next few weeks. So we need all of you, please, to volunteer or continue to volunteer to participate into the clinical trials, because it is thanks to the 44,000 volunteers who participated in the Pfizer trial and 30,000 volunteers who participated in the Moderna trial that we have been able to assess that these vaccines work. It is your generous action, and I would call on your civic sense to please continue to participate in the clinical trials, even if 2 vaccines may very well be approved in the next few weeks. And I would say there's in that not only an action that will help our country and the world, in that it defines that more vaccines can be shown to be efficacious, but that action is also, frankly, helpful to you. You've heard me say we can immunize 20 million people in December, 30 million in January, 50 million in February. If you participate in a clinical trial, you have 50% chance to have the vaccine now. And from some other trial, depending on how randomization is done, you may have 66% to have vaccine now. And these trials are running so fast. When the trial completes, you will have also a chance, if you received the placebo, to get vaccination immediately once the trial has read out. So please continue to participate, continue to help. We are continuing to drive as fastly and as safely as we can the development and the manufacturing of this vaccine. And I know General Perna is working very hard with his team to ensure that they make it to the location where you will be able to be immunized. General, up to you now. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me all right? Yes, sir. Great. Well, thank you, and it's a great honor to be here, and it's a great honor to co-lead this effort with Dr. Moncef Slaoui, a world-renowned scientist, and I just tell you, a personal friend and somebody that's helped me grow personally and professionally over the last 6 to 7 months. And again, Dr. Slaoui, thank you so much. Okay, so it's clear to everybody that I am not a scientist. I am a soldier, and I'm very proud to be a soldier, serve under Secretary McCarthy and Chief of Staff of the Army, General McConville, and I just feel obligated to say it is an honor to serve our country and our nation as a soldier. And I just want to say thanks to all the servicemen and women that are out there every day sacrificing for what we do. Since the moment I've been appointed as the co-leader of this task force, every waking moment is about one purpose. And Dr. Slaoui and I have this purpose together, right? It is about saving American lives. There is nothing else that has our focus but saving American lives. And we're doing that, right, by delivering safe and effective therapeutics and vaccines to the American people. And how did this come to fruition? As quickly said earlier by Dr. Slaoui, it's come to fruition because of our approach being a whole of America effort. Right? It was led at the government, at the highest levels of the government, by Secretary Azar and Secretary Miller of the Department of Defense. It has been supported and collaborated by our great industry partners that are represented here today, and I'll call some out in the future. But trust me when I tell you, we couldn't do it without them. And then it has been contributed through great academia conversations about innovation. How do we are able to act in an agile and adaptive way to the COVID and achieve success of what we're trying to do. So it was this collaboration of this effort that I just cannot express enough to all of us how important this was. Future problems facing us need to always have this type of collaboration if we want to ensure success. It's been a Herculean effort, as Dr. Slaoui talked about. We have focused, we have built brick and mortar capability and capacity, expanded already capability that existed so that we could ensure that we have vaccines when they were approved. We have prioritized materials from around the world into our industry partners. We have prioritized medical equipment into our industry partners to achieve the success that we're talking about today. Initial doses in the hundreds of millions, right, or excuse me, in the tens of millions, right, in December. But we will quickly expand every week, every month that goes by until we have enough vaccine for all the American people. That was our mission, safe and effective vaccines to the American people. Now, we're at a stage, as Dr. Slaoui said, we're on the precipice of having vaccines approved. So what is next? Because we don't want to get out in front of ourselves. As my father used to say, you can only spike the football when you're in the end zone. Well, what is the end zone described as here? Shots in arms, right? And so we want to make sure that we have a distribution plan that is capable, right, of taking the vaccines that are available on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis and ensuring a distribution to the American people. How do we do that? 3 cornerstones to our plan. First and foremost, we went to the CDC, experts, right? Not part-time, experts in managing vaccines and medicines in distribution to the American people. We collaborated and we partnered with them, led by Dr. Butler, supported by, led by Dr. Redfield, supported and providing leadership through Dr. Butler, Dr. Messonnier, Dr. Patel, and hundreds of others that are true professionals in how to manage and distribute this vaccine. Very, very important to our success. Second, we went to private industry. Why? Private industry knows how to do this. They do it every day. They do it quietly. They do it professionally. They do it with expertise. Vaccines and medicines flowing throughout our country every single day, right? And who's doing it? Private industry. We went to them. We collaborated with them. We took their good ideas. We put them into our plan. The CDC integrated, synchronized, coordinating their capabilities and capacity of industry to ensure that we have a well-nested plan for distribution. Right? And then what was the last thing? Key to our success. It's not our plan that needs to be implemented perfectly. It is the governor's plans that we want to enable, that we want to empower, that we want to make sure that we can execute according to their priorities and guidance. They know their states. They know their people. They are being informed by highly professional medical personnel that know their people and their states. Our position is to enable them. So it is this trifecta, the CDC, commercial industry, and the governors and their states that is going to make us successful at the end of the day. Trust me, it is about collaboration. It is about unity of effort. It is not about command and control. This is what the operation's been able to synchronize and integrate. So, as said earlier, right, what is our goal? Our goal is upon EUA, Emergency Use Authorization, which will be determined by the FDA, we will start moving vaccines within 24 hours. We will move them throughout the entire United States of America. 50 states, 8 territories, 6 megacities, and 5 federal agencies. We know, right, based on the allocations that were available to us for Pfizer vaccine, and our allocation process was by pro rata to the population of each state, territory, or city above the age of 18 to ensure fair and equitable distribution of vaccine every day. We know that for Pfizer vaccine, based on our allocation, we know exactly, as of last Friday, where the states want the vaccine distributed to. We know the locations by address. We know the populations based on the amounts that they want at each location. We know this as a fact. We are already sharing this information with industry, which I'll talk about in a minute, what they're going to do with it, so that they can plan, package, and prepare to distribute. This week, we're working on the Moderna vaccine initial allocations with the states. And by this Friday, we will have all the locations for the Moderna vaccine allocation from the states. We'll know where they want it, and we'll know how much they want it. So within a 1-week period, we've been able to accumulate, process, inform, and collaborate where the vaccine's going to. Key to our success. So now we have EUA, we have the information we need, where it's going, how much is going. So how is it going? First, the Pfizer vaccine is depicted up front, upper half of the chart. Their goal is to deliver a vaccine to the right side of the chart on all those places and locations that we want it to go to. Pfizer has chosen to do their own delivery of vaccine, right, in collaboration with us and in our priorities to distribution capabilities, right, FedEx and UPS, right, and they will distribute to FedEx and UPS, and FedEx and UPS will break down the vaccine by location and then distribute it to the final locations accordingly. The Moderna vaccine is going a little bit differently. Moderna chose to have a distributor come in and help them. McKesson is going to take responsibility for that. They're going to break down the vaccine. They will repackage it. Then they will distribute it through FedEx and UPS down to the final administration sites as directed by the governors. At the end of the day, whether it's Pfizer or Moderna, right, our capability and capacity is something that we know how to do, and we know how to track and how to implement it, and how to make sure that the vaccine is delivered. It is delivered safely. It is delivered to ensure the stability of the vaccine, and it is delivered securely to the locations that we said. Right? This is why we put this all together. It will be a Herculean task, but I am confident, as I said, the planning by the CDC, the collaboration by our partners, McKesson, FedEx, UPS, CVS, Walgreens, right, that we will be able to execute this vaccine very efficiently, but more importantly, effectively. As we start to deliver the vaccine, we will be able to track every single vaccine from start to finish. We have worked in great collaboration with commercial industry. We have developed a capacity or a capability to track every vaccine. We will see from point A to point B. We will understand how the vaccine is being administered in arms, and we will continue to flow vaccine to support the use at the administration sites. The key is flow of available vaccine. We are not waiting for a monthly cycle of delivery of vaccine. Every day, every week that vaccine becomes available, allocations will be provided to the states, and we will start and we will execute a predictable and consistent cadence of vaccine delivery. We will do that by providing allocations to the states. States will tell us where they want the vaccines to go, and then we will deliver the vaccines in accordance to the process that I told you. What is the greatness of this? It is about making sure that we get the initial doses out following EUA within 24 hours, and then providing a steady cadence of vaccine so that planners can plan, and then people who are going to have to administer understand the timing of administration, where we can notify persons to come get shots and be available. It is the flow we're trying to create that will determine our success. I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about the amount of work that's gone into this. Somebody said to me the other day, oh, I heard there's EUA coming about. Are you guys going to start planning? I said, start planning? We literally have started planning, as Dr. Slawi talked about, 7 months ago. Right? It was in parallel that we executed this. We assumed success so that we could get ahead of the problem. It was because of the great efforts by the CDC, the collaboration of commercial industry, and the state's Herculean effort to plan for the people to receive shots, that we're going to be successful. So, with that said, I will tell you, I am 100% confident that we will be able to implement this, that with our collaboration of the trifecta there, we will be successful, and we will start to have shots in arms within 96 hours of EUA. That's what I believe with all my heart. And I am counting on it, because I, for one, have told my mother, right, get the vaccine. I've told my sons, get the vaccine. That's how confident I am in this. So I ask for you, as Dr. Slawi said at the end, right, all of us, the American people, we can beat this only together, right? We can do this if we do it together, right? Be informed, right? Don't be led. Understand, do your research, hold yourself accountable to hearing both sides of the story, and then make an individual decision that's best for yourself and your family and your community, right? And if we do that, we will be successful, and we will defeat, right, the enemy, which is COVID. So with that said, thank you everybody for your time. It's a real pleasure.
Okay. I'm not sure there's two more humble, selfless, confident leaders in the country. So congratulations, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure working with you. I have to tell a short anecdote about Dr. Slawi. He's pretty reticent about telling folks he's the most successful vaccine developer in the world today. So after he decided what his slate of 6 vaccines was going to be, we took him through a little exercise. We said, there's 3 criteria we want you to evaluate the probability of. Will it get through phase 3 clinical trials and get an EUA? Will it be effective in persons over 65? And will we have tens of millions of doses of each? 6 vaccines, 3 criteria, 18 total factors. We came out with, if you remember, this was last summer, 75% probability we'd have at least one of those, about 30% probability we'd have 2. So choosing that slate was so vital to our success today, and Dr. Slawi was once again spot on. Okay. So now we move on to objective number 2, which is building confidence. And you will have Adam Bowler, who's been one of the Operation Warp Speed board members, have a discussion with Dr. Peter Marks, who's the director for the Center of Biologics Evaluation and Research. For those of you who don't know that, it's the agency that will actually evaluate and hopefully approve the emergency use authorizations for the vaccines. And they're going to talk through the truly gold standard process that the FDA has utilized over the last several months. They've had input into the clinical trials. They're obviously vital to evaluating for emergency use. Now, Peter's been very gracious. He's literally has staff working 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He did not want to leave his staff today to come down and talk to you, but we thought it was much more important for the American people to hear from him briefly about the rigorous process, the exacting process that he is taking his team through to evaluate these. And when he's done, he's going to head right back out to the FDA. So thank you for that, Dr. Marks. And Adam Bowler and Dr. Marks, come on out. And Adam, it's all yours, Adam.
Thanks very much, Paul. You guys hear me okay? Is it working? Well, thanks so much for joining meet Dr. Marks. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know you over the last number of months, and you lead an unbelievable team of physicians and scientists at the FDA, and I know the American people owe it to all of you for your hard work. So first, thank you very much for being here.
No, thank you very much.
Let me start. Obviously, this has been an unbelievably rapid development cycle from a vaccine perspective. So maybe take us through what is the difference between this approach versus the traditional approach, which would take so long. So take us through that.
Right, so I think Dr. Slawi alluded to this, but I'll just kind of try to say it in a different way. You know, normally vaccine development is something that is de-risked so that one completes each step, stops, looks, then goes to the next step, stops, looks, then goes to the next step, and at the end of the process, one really ramps up manufacturing. What was done here is instead of that serial one after the other process, many things were collapsed and done at the same time. And I think General Perna noted that instead of waiting till the very end to decide how you're going to distribute the vaccine, instead of waiting till the end to decide that you're going to manufacture large amounts of vaccine at risk, these were done at the same time. And what that means by doing things in a parallel manner is that corners were not cut here. This is a vaccine that's gone through, these vaccines are going through the large kinds of trials that we would expect from prophylactic vaccines, preventative vaccines that are going to be given to large numbers of people. Just to give you just a number, the average vaccine development program for the kind of prophylactic preventative vaccines that we're talking about is about 21,750 people enrolled. So these programs with from 30,000 to 45,000, 44,000 patients enrolled or individuals enrolled, that's a pretty nice size program. And so that's giving us kind of the gold standard types of a clinical trial program that we'd like to see for preventative vaccines.
Thank you, Dr. Marks. Now, one question that's circling, and Dr. Salawi just talked about it, is whether Americans should take this vaccine. So let me ask that question to you, is why should Americans trust these vaccines?
So the reason why I'm sitting here today and the reason why we're going through the process that we're going through at FDA is so that Americans can trust a vaccine that they're going to receive. The FDA is known around the world for its regulatory rigor. We're one of the only regulators in the world where we don't just take the data that's handed to us from companies and look at it. We actually take the data listings, the raw data that gets sent to us, and do analyses ourselves on that. And it's a group of over 150 people working right now at FDA to go through and do these type of analyses to make sure that the vaccine is what it says it is, to make sure we fully understand the side effect profile, to understand sometimes we learn things that the manufacturers didn't even know about their own vaccines by doing our analyses. And so by doing that hard work, the folks are making sure that when it comes through this process, we're going to have a vaccine that has efficacy that we can trust, safety that we can trust, and quality that we can trust, which is what Americans deserve, because all the people working at FDA right now are thinking about this vaccine as if it's one that they want to take, they want to have their families take, and then have our extended family in the United States take. And this is really important, that we're only going to get there if we do this all together by taking vaccines together. This is a time where we have to rebuild our trust in vaccines. And we hope by the transparent process that we're using, by going to an advisory committee in the public view, where people will see the data that's being put forth, where there'll be a discussion among academic experts of the safety, effectiveness, and the quality of these vaccines, that people will see nothing's being hidden, that these are vaccines that when we say at FDA they're safe and effective, it means we've done our best job to make sure that they are safe and effective for all of us to roll up our sleeves and take.
Thank you, Peter. Could you expand a little bit on the clinical trial process? I mean, the size, the scope, give me a little sense of that.
So these clinical trials that involve the randomization, so flipping a coin and putting a one-to-one person getting a placebo or an inactive product versus the active vaccine, where we have 15,000 people in each arm to compare them, means that we have a very large size trial, which not only lets us get to the efficacy quicker, as Dr. Slaoui noted, but also gives us a very nice size safety database. And although normally we'd like to have longer follow-up of individuals perhaps than we'll have right now, we're able to make up for that by following the people who were in the clinical trials for longer periods of time, and by the fact that over the past 10 years in the United States, we've developed a very robust safety surveillance system which uses large databases covering hundreds of millions of lives to be able to look at specific adverse events to make sure that there aren't problems coming up after these vaccines are given to people. And we wouldn't let them out there in the first place if we thought that there was any significant chance of that, but we are going to make sure by monitoring them that there aren't things that emerge as they're used.
What happens next? I mean, I know obviously the FDA is going to go through their process. A lot of people are expecting, we all hope for authorization. So assuming that happens, assuming you went through and issued the EUA, what happens next?
After an emergency use authorization is granted, there'll be several things that will happen, but the Advisory Committee of Immunization Practices will make further recommendations about use of the vaccine. Vaccine will then get into General Perna's hands, and they will get it out there, and we will activate our safety surveillance system. There will actually then be, in the coming months, additional trials that will be done on these vaccines, because there are populations that we still don't have information on that we have to get information. Children, pregnant women, among them, that we'll get more data on these vaccines so that we'll be able to ultimately, hopefully, by late spring, start to vaccinate the entire population and get to children so that we actually then stop the entire COVID cycle.
And I know once it gets into General Perna's hands, was it plus a day? Less? That's it. One final question for you, Dr. Marks, which is expand a little bit on how important it is for every American to get this vaccine, or not, feel free to say.
I think it's really critical here to understand that what we're doing at FDA is trying to make sure that people have the confidence to use vaccines. Vaccines have been an incredible public health advance. Our agency has been regulating vaccines for over 100 years, since actually before the Center for Biologics, the precursor, actually predated the Food and Drug Administration. It was established by the Biologics Control Act of 1902, for anyone who wants some history lesson. And so we've been doing this for a while. The first or second biologics license was for a smallpox vaccine. So we've been doing this, and so we got a pretty good sense of what safety looks like for a vaccine. And we've seen what vaccines can do. Eliminated smallpox. Polio is something that nobody sees anymore in the United States because it's gone pretty much. Even measles we don't see, because as long as we keep getting our children vaccinated, we don't have measles outbreaks in the United States. So it's a huge transformation from vaccines. And we would not allow vaccines to go out there if they weren't safe and effective. And when we see safety signals, we deal with them. So it's critical here that we all trust in the outcome of this process, because we all need to bring this crisis to an end together, and getting vaccinated is kind of the first step there. You know, what we have right now is we can wear masks, we can wash our hands, and we can stay social distance. With the vaccine, we can finally help drive this away and have it go the way, hopefully, of smallpox, to being something that's only in high biocontainment laboratories. And that's only going to happen if a large fraction of eligible people take the vaccine.
Well, thank you, Dr. Marks. I mean, Washington can be a difficult town. but you and your team and the group here show that this is not a partisan effort, it's an American effort. And so as an American, I want to really say how much I appreciate all your work and your team's work.
Thanks very much. I have to say, I have an incredible team of diverse individuals who are so committed to this that they have worked tirelessly, and they'll continue to work tirelessly with these vaccines and additional vaccines till we have what we need to beat COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think we're going to call this the show and tell panel, but just a little story about Dr. Peter Marks. Little known fact, he's actually the one who coined the term Operation Warp Speed so many months ago, and was actually very involved early on in the initial aggregation of the candidates, the vaccine candidates from around the world that were eventually screened. And as I said, we determined there were 6 that would be good candidates. So we're going to now turn to the topic of logistics, the logistics of vaccine distribution, and we'll have the Assistant Secretary of Health, known pretty well to many of you, Admiral Gerard. He'll lead a panel comprising Sean Siemens from McKesson, Richard Smith from FedEx, Wes Wheeler from UPS, and Mark Casper from Thermo Fisher. And I think just is a good time to reinforce again the vital role that the public-private partnership in Operation Warp Speed is playing. And we've made this statement before. With the exception of a very few federal agencies such as the Veterans Administration, maybe the Indian Health Service and a couple of others, it's highly unlikely that a federal employee will touch a vaccine dose before it's injected into Americans' arms. Highly unlikely a federal employee will touch that dose. And that goes to General Perna's point about this public-private partnership and all of our great partners. We're going to depend on them, and they possess, we believe, the most well-developed inventory management, transport, distribution, logistics, and vaccine administration capabilities in the world. We're simply building upon their foundation. We've already delivered close to 200 million flu vaccines just this season in the last 4 or 5 months in conjunction with the CDC and companies like those you'll hear from shortly. So this is, again, a great group of companies, our public-private partnership, and I'm going to hand it off to Admiral Gerard to take us through the next panel.
Well, good. Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be here, and I do want to say we are here representing many individuals, Surgeon General Vice Admiral Adams, Rear Admiral Wiaki, and myself are members of the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps, 6,100 men and women, all health professionals who've been at the front line of this pandemic. 4,300 have been deployed. The other 1,800 are on the front line in the Indian Health Service Bureau of Prisons. So shout out to all of them who are currently deployed. I am here with 4 great companies. We're talking about their role in Operation Warp Speed, but they have been essential to our efforts to bring PPE, to distribute therapies like monoclonal antibodies, to bring tests throughout the country. What you're going to hear here is only the tip of the iceberg of what they've done to support this pandemic response in our country. You heard their names, but Sean Siemens, President, RX Crossroads, Executive Sponsor, Enterprise COVID Vaccine Program with McKesson. Mark Casper, Chairman, President, and CEO of Thermo Fisher. Wes Wheeler, President, UPS Healthcare, and finally Richard Smith, Regional President of the Americas for FedEx. So I'm going to lead with a few questions. My first one I'm going to direct at our colleagues from McKesson. So let's talk generally. What is your role? And you saw it on the board earlier in distributing vaccines, including kitting of the needed supplies like syringes and needles.
Well, thank you, Admiral, for your leadership, and I want to thank all of our public-private partners in Operation Warp Speed. It's both an honor and a privilege for McKesson to play such an important role at this time for our country. For those of you who are not familiar with McKesson, we're one of the largest healthcare companies in the world. We do lots of things. Our primary role is distributing pharmaceuticals and medical surgical supplies to end sites of care, hospitals, physician office, clinics, etc. We also have an extensive background in vaccines. Been the proud supporter of the CDC's Vaccines for Children's program for the last 13 plus years, and we are the largest distributor of seasonal flu in the United States. We were also the centralized distributor for H1N1 during that pandemic, and we stand ready to meet this moment right now in the time of COVID vaccine delivery for our country. So we have 2 primary roles. The first is centralized distributor of vaccines and ancillary supply kits. The second is the producer of those ancillary supply kits, and that's where I want to start. I've actually got an example of the kit here that I can show on this very crowded table. As you can see, it'll come in a box like this. We have produced enough of these kits to administer over 150 million doses of vaccine at this point. We've been well at work manufacturing these kits for the better part of the last 2.5 months, and that kit right there will have enough supplies to administer 100 doses of vaccine, which is what will accompany most of the vaccine deliveries as part of this program. We're also doing another kit specific to Pfizer, which has the same supplies in it: needle syringes, face masks, face shield, alcohol wipes, swabs, etc. And in enough quantities to meet the Pfizer minimum, which is 975 doses. So we will be shipping, as you saw in the schematic, the Pfizer kits directly to the end site of administration, either in advance or at the same time to meet up with that Pfizer vaccine. And then we will be distributing that kit there, the 100-dose kit, to our vaccine facilities so that we can ultimately marry them up with the vaccines to send out to the end site of administration. So that leads me to our second role, and that is as the centralized distributor. And so there, I just want to point out a couple quick things. As you saw in the schematic and heard from General Perna, we are not making any allocation decisions. That is all done by the CDC, Operation Warp Speed, and the states and their plans. Our program, you heard 50,000 sites. This program is set up to ship to any number of sites. We can do hundreds of thousands of sites if necessary. Effectively, anywhere where FedEx or UPS can go, we can get a vaccine. So let me just quickly talk you through Moderna and how that process is going to work. So Moderna will ship us bulk pallet of product. We will ensure that temperature integrity was maintained during that shipment. We will quickly get it into a specially designed and custom-built freezer in one of our multiple facilities that we have built to support nothing but COVID vaccines. These freezers have specialized monitoring and alarms to ensure cold chain integrity during the entire time it's with McKesson. From there, we will take the orders in from the CDC in terms of numbers of doses and where they need to be shipped. We will pull those individual orders from the pallet, pack them into a specialized shipper, which this is the smallest frozen shipper. These are also custom designed for this program. And then we will put in specialized cooling packs. We will not be using dry ice for any vaccine that McKesson ships as part of this program. So Moderna and any of the refrigerated vaccines. And then the last thing we'll do is put a temperature monitor in so that the first thing the site of administration sees when they open it up is that there was no excursion on that product. And so that is the program. We are ready to start shipping both vaccines and ancillary supplies today and as soon as there's an EUA.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. I want to turn the next question to Mr. Smith as well as Mr. Wheeler, FedEx and UPS. So everyone knows, and you heard the logistical challenges that were brought up by General Perna and everyone, particularly the cold chain requirements for Pfizer. Walk us through a bit on how each of your companies approach this problem and what steps are you doing to meet the challenges of this distribution and cold chain.
Sure, Admiral. Happy to take that, and I'll tag team it with Wes. I'll start at the macro. First and foremost, this is who we are and what we do. This is not foreign to us. Between us and UPS, we move millions of vaccines every year. So we have the network capabilities, connecting 220 countries and territories, 99% of the world's GDP, and servicing every zip code in the United States of America. We have the cold chain infrastructure, particularly in the event of some sort of a delay where we can stage product, even ultra cold freezers, which we've been adding and UPS has been adding to support some of the mRNA vaccines that have those deep frozen or ultra cold requirements. And we plan for surge events every year with our customers. And these healthcare companies, the manufacturers, the distributors, they're already our customers. So we know them well, we know their business well, we work well together. And we plan for these things every year. We jump into action and use our networks in times of disaster relief and deliver for good, as we like to say at FedEx, into affected communities when that happens. So we're well versed in planning for this. So we spent a lot of time on that. I think a lot of the onus on protecting the vaccine is on the packaging side, and I know Wes is going to talk a little bit to that, so I'll hand it over to you, Wes.
Sure, thanks. Before we talk about the packaging, I just want to, we've been involved with the pandemic since the very beginning with movement of over 20 million pounds of PPE into the country from China and all over the world. We were very, very much involved all the way through the process. Of course, then we got involved with the clinical trials. In fact, we were the principal supplier of the logistics for Pfizer's clinical trial, and some of that trial is still ongoing for some of the ancillary components later on. We have worked, as soon as April, we started a full-time vaccine task force, started to look at all the various components. We mapped out tens of thousands of lanes across the country, across the world, very similar to what FedEx has done, to make sure that we had the capacity across the United States in every single jurisdiction of the U.S. plus the world. So that's been what we've been doing to get ready for this. I think temperature control is something that's very, very important. We can talk about perhaps Admiral Gerard in the next segment.
Fantastic. I didn't know if you wanted to show us now
Sure.
About your the equipment, the shipper box that
Sure.
you brought. I think it's a good time to do that.
Okay, I'm going to ask Charlton to come up for a second. Okay, so we have two boxes here. This is how Pfizer's box will be shipped. Pfizer has designed this package exclusively for them and for the Pfizer vaccine. There's 4 components in the box. It's a thermal shipper. In the bottom, there's dry ice. In the middle, there's the payload. And on top is more dry ice. And on the very top of the box, you'll see, and you can show that here, is a controllant device that tracks the GPS location of this box. Plus, there's a thermal temperature probe that goes into the payload to make sure the temperature at minus 70 degrees Celsius is actually maintained throughout the journey. So this box will be ready. They'll be shipped from 2 locations, Michigan and Wisconsin. They'll come to our locations at FedEx and also at UPS in Louisville, Kentucky. And we will have all the data that comes from this box streaming into our command center. We have a 24/7 command center in Louisville, Kentucky, and all the data streaming in from that box will come into us in addition to our own tracking device, which you'll see here. This box actually went through a couple of tests recently, so you'll see there's a tag on here. Where's the tag? Over here, Wes. Sorry? Over here. On the other side? You got the wrong side. This tag here has multiple radios built into it. Every box will have one of these tags attached. And this tag is actually communicating to our command center every time it hits a UPS location. So we'll have that data, we'll have the Pfizer data, and on top of that, we have a Sentry device, which I'll ask Charlton to pull out. This thing here. This will also be attached to every trailer load that comes out of the Pfizer location and the Moderna location and the McKesson location to give real-time GPS data as well as temperature and shock and light exposure. So we have 3 ways of tracking the data every time a shipment moves. Now, on top of that, one more. Once this arrives at each dosing center around the country, UPS will be shipping dry ice to replenish the box. So this will start to sublimate after a few days, which means evaporate, and we will be shipping in this box dry ice, about 42 pounds of dry ice the day after. This has been something that General Perna has asked for, something we've designed, and we're prepared to do this from Louisville, Kentucky. And on top, we will be manufacturing 24,000 pounds of dry ice per day. We expect at peak to be shipping about 60 to 70,000 pounds of dry ice per day in total. So that's how it's going to work.
Truly impressive. Very impressive. I want to get to Richard in just a second because I want him to talk about his tracking mechanisms, and also what people ask me, this is the busiest shipping time of the year, it's Christmas. How are you going to deal with saving the world with a pandemic and delivering at Christmas at the same time? But I want to get to Mark Casper now from Thermo Fisher. As the testing guy, Thermo has been involved a lot, making the machines that do PCR, making the full service test in the tens of millions of tubes of viral transport media. So we're on each other's speed dial. But you're here in a different role because you have a big company and you make a lot of the hardware to keep stuff really cold. So why don't you talk to us about your ultra-low temperature solutions and some of the devices that you brought here.
Sure. So Admiral, thank you for hosting the panel and for all that you've done in the response to the pandemic. And I'd also like to thank President Trump, the Vice President Pence, and the entire administration for being in a position that we can be talking about vaccine distribution in so few months. It's pretty amazing opportunity to do so. So Thermo Fisher Scientific has been very involved in the pandemic response, as you said. In fact, our microscopes were used to actually identify the spike protein, and that spike protein is what the vaccine then ultimately was able to target, all the way through the testing with PCR, and in many aspects of the vaccine and therapy, in terms of using our factories to produce the product, as well as our raw materials in the product. But today, when you think about vaccine distribution, it's really about ultra-cold storage. And we, in the 1950s, actually started in the process of supplying laboratories with ultra-low temperature freezers, minus 80, minus 86 degrees temperature freezers, so you can store these vaccines and other biological samples. And our team around the world is ready. In fact, we have made significant investments in our facilities in Asheville, North Carolina, Marietta, Ohio, adding American jobs and millions of dollars of investment to be ready for this day. In fact, when we heard about Operation Warp Speed, we started the hiring because we knew that we needed to be ready. So when a vaccine was ready, Thermo Fisher was ready. And in this vaccine storage unit, this ultra-low temperature unit made in North Carolina, effectively you can store about 5,000 doses. In the typical ones, you could store up to about 300,000 doses. And I will keep it safe and just open up so you can get a sense of at least the scale of it. which is here, and inside you can store those 5,000 doses. So we're ready, and as the requirements are needed, we'll be there to support the efforts of the government.
Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to get back to Mr. Smith, so let me rephrase the question. How are you going to keep General Perna and Santa Claus both happy at the same time?
Sure. Well, you may have noticed when you see our trucks running around your neighborhoods, some of them say FedEx Ground, some of them say FedEx Express. The FedEx Express network is the original Federal Express company that was founded in Memphis, Tennessee in 1973 and pioneered absolutely positively overnight delivery. That is where you ship time-definite critical shipments like vaccines. Our ground system is where the bulk of your Christmas presents and most of the online commerce surge that we've seen, that's who's out there delivering that. So running discrete networks gives us the focus and the ability to make these vaccines a top priority for us. Secondly, you touched on our tracking and monitoring solution. This is this is our patented SenseAware ID, the latest and greatest in positive control. It gives us real-time visibility to every shipment we pick up. So our couriers will affix these tags to every box. Our priority alert agents will be sitting in a 24/7, 365 command center monitoring them based on both the traditional scan data and the real-time SenseAware ID node data. But even more importantly than that is what we call FedEx Surround. It is a new platform that we've launched in collaboration with Microsoft, which we announced earlier this year. It uses all of that data that we generate every day to give us predictive analytics so that if that package is in danger of failing, they can jump into action and intercede before a failure occurs. That is a very profound leap forward, an evolutionary leap, if you will, in track and trace technology, and I think it is the future. We're very proud of it, and we're debuting it and using it in conjunction with this vaccine distribution.
So I think we have time for a couple more questions. I'll just ask generally, we know this is your business, all of you, this is what you do, but did you have to do any special training for your employees, your pilots, anyone in the system to get ready for this mission? Maybe we can start with McKesson first.
Yeah, sure. You know, as you mentioned, this is something that we're quite familiar with, very extensive experience in vaccines, although this is a unique environment. So I'd say a couple things. One, the Moderna vaccine, given its need to be stored and distributed at -15 to -25 range, we had to specially get equipment and specially train our employees to work and operate in that environment, because we are actually taking the doses from that bulk pallet and putting it into the packages within the freezer. So you can imagine you can only do that for a certain period of time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, you have to rotate out. But you know, other than that, the rest of the program is really, as we do, we're just doing it at a bigger scale.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
You know, I mean, I'll add to that. Of course, we have 3,000 pilots in the U.S. We land 400 to 500 flights per day and take off every night from Louisville, Kentucky. We ship 60 million flu vaccines a year. We're very good at this. We know how to handle biologic drugs. This happens to be a pretty specialized biologic drug because it's kept at very, very, very low temperatures. So the one thing we've had to do is make sure that we have enough dry ice capacity on the aircraft and that we know exactly how to handle the special tracking devices that I explained earlier on that box.
Yeah, similar to Wes, we worked with the FAA over the years to safely raise the threshold in terms of how much dry ice we can carry on our aircraft. We've installed CO2 monitors, and the crews are well versed and trained for all sorts of eventualities. We have DG specialists in our operations who are trained in handling dry ice and dangerous goods packages. So this is not new to us. Just like our esteemed competitor over here, we handle millions of vaccine shipments and biologics and other things that have tight temperature control requirements every year.
Mark, anything from your side?
You know, we, because of the ramp up of hiring, over 5,000 new employees this year in the response. The training efforts have been monumental, and we have a phenomenal team, and I couldn't be more grateful because it's their work that's actually put me on the stage, right? I mean, it's all of their hard efforts that has given us the opportunity to play a role in this response.
Fantastic. Art, did you have something else to add?
I'm just going to mention, in terms of scale, remember, this is a peak period for us, for both FedEx and UPS. We shipped 34 million packages yesterday. So we're estimating that the
My
number of
wife ordered
shipments
most of
required
them,
for
actually.
vaccine, a very small amount. This is a small fraction of what we do every day.
On the next panel, and we know this is, the goal is to get needles in people's arms, get them safe, save lives. We're going to be working with retailers like Walgreens and CVS. And I think it would be interesting to the audience to understand what kind of interactions, if any, you have with them on a daily basis, what you've had to build. And I bet Thermo's supplying something to them as well. So maybe we'll start with Thermo and then go around. Mark?
Yeah, we prepared our cold storage products to be ready to support the distribution networks and the retailers. So we've had close contact with them, and we'll supply whatever they need.
Yeah, they're our customers. We know them well. We partner with them for on-site pickup, and they actually act as retail access points for our networks where you can pick up and deliver your packages at Walgreens or CVS. So we know their business well. We're going there every single day.
Yeah, I think we have 10,000 CVS stores in our database, and we'll be delivering starting General Perna. Hopefully in the next couple of days, we're prepared, we're ready, and we're excited about that. And on behalf of the 500,000 UPSers in our company, we're extremely proud to be part of this operation, and we really thank you very much.
And just to end, CVS is our largest customer, actually, and we also work with Walgreens. We deliver pharmaceutical products and supplies to those companies every day. So we have an extensive relationship with them.
I can tell you this discussion, I had great confidence, but it also reinforces that this is what you do, right? It's like me as a pediatrician looking in a child's ears. This is what I do every single day. This is what you do. And the scale is larger and the complexity is higher, but I have great confidence, as the American people should. Let me just ask the last question. A couple of you said you might want to take this, and if you don't, that's fine. Any myths you want to bust?
Oh, man. Come on. How much time do you have?
We only have, I think, about 5 minutes left, but myths to bust, because I think it's very important, because the rumor mills get out there, the Twitter machine is kind of crazy, so let's bust some myths.
So let me start with the one that's probably most in our wheelhouse as an airline. Obviously, there's others out there. There's not enough dry ice in the world. There's not enough gloves. But there's not enough air cargo capacity out there to handle this. So I've seen some studies that say you need 8,000 jumbo jets. Some say 777s, some say 747s. Those are very different units of capacity, by the way. But let's just say wide-body aircraft. At FedEx, we operate 8,000 flights a week, 32,000 flights a month. Of those, half of those are wide-body aircraft. So if we dedicated our network to it, we could deliver all the world's vaccines based on those studies, which, by the way, are very flawed because they use a lot of assumptions that aren't valid because of all the different vaccines and different packaging dimensions, but let's assume they are. By those studies, we could deliver all the world's vaccines using just our network in a couple of weeks, because you don't fly an airplane just once, right? You fly it multiple times. So that is a huge myth that's out there. There is plenty of air cargo capacity in our network, in our competitors' networks to handle this. And remember, it's not all going to hit us on a Tuesday. It's a function of time. It's going to come over time. So we've got this. Relax. It's FedEx and UPS.
I've seen that myth been propagated this weekend, so thanks for clarifying that. You have one?
Well, I think the perception that everything travels in a temperature-controlled vehicle or aircraft is we have that, of course. We do that every day with many, many products. In this case, these vaccines' temperature is controlled in the box. The box has been designed to maintain temperature for 10 days. And I didn't show this before, but that's a 2 ml vial right there. And we can put up to 5,000 doses in that box. And so the temperature will be maintained for 10 days. And we will have the dry ice to replenish if necessary. So the myth that we can't move temperature-controlled stuff in temperature-controlled vehicles is just not right. This is how we're doing it.
Fantastic.
They said it well.
Yeah. Any myths from you? Well, I just want to say, I want to thank all of you and all your employees. When they get up in the morning, I hope when you ask them what they're doing, they're not loading an aircraft, they're saving lives. They're saving thousands of lives. Their contribution is as vital as anybody with a stethoscope or immunizing someone. And I can just say, having worked with all your companies since really day one, in this pandemic, I want to sincerely thank you on behalf of the American people, our service, and everyone you serve.
Thank you, Admiral.
And I think we're going to have back to Mr. Mango.